So I want you to imagine looking for your lost wallet, right? But you've been looking for it for years.
Oh man, years. That sounds exhausting.
Right. Like you are completely tearing your house apart. You're pulling up the floorboards. You're emptying every single drawer.
Just retracing your steps for the thousandth time.
Exactly. And you're feeling this mounting, just crushing anxiety about it.
Because you can't find it anywhere.
Right. But then someone taps you on the shoulder and says, well, they say you aren't lost because you can't find the wallet.
Okay.
You're lost because you never actually owned the wallet to begin with.
Wow. That's a total paradigm shift right there.
It really is. And that's exactly where today's deep dive is taking us. We're looking into a piece of text that basically argues that practically every piece of self-help advice you have ever heard,
Yeah.
like every therapy session focused on finding your inner truth.
Finding your authentic self, right?
Exactly. It argues that all of that is essentially a form of cosmic theft.
It's wild. I mean, we are really looking at a fundamental rewiring of the human operating system today.
We really are.
The source material we have, it just forces a total reevaluation of what the word self even means when we talk about, self-discovery.
Yeah, so we're jumping right into this really profound, highly personal, and just radically different response to a very complex psychological question.
And we should tell them what the source actually is.
Yes. So we are analyzing a translated piece of Arabic text from the Q&A platform Quora.
Right.
There's a user named Ahmed, and he responded to this incredibly heavy prompt. The question that was posed to the internet was this:
Okay, let's hear it.
how does a person rediscover themselves after feeling intellectual and psychological loss?
I mean, just think about how common that feeling is today.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's that specific brand of modern exhaustion, right? Where you feel intellectually adrift or just psychologically drained.
Like you've completely lost the plot of your own life.
Exactly. And, you'd expect the answer to be about, like we said, journaling or maybe finding a new hobby.
Taking a sabbatical.
Right. Doing some intense introspection to locate your authentic core. But that is not what Ahmed gives us.
No, it is not. But before we get into what he does say, we need to set some ground rules for this deep dive.
Yeah, that's a very important point. The source material we are working with today is deeply, unmistakably rooted in a specific Islamic theological framework.
Right.
Ahmed is writing from a place of profound religious conviction. His entire argument rests on the tenets of the Qur'an and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad.
Which is really important context.
It is. And our goal in this deep dive is not to endorse or, validate the religious viewpoints presented in this text.
But we're not preaching here.
Exactly. Nor are we here to critique them from a secular standpoint or take any kind of theological side at all.
We're just looking at the text.
Right. We are treating this document as a fascinating, intricate case study. We're just impartially unpacking the psychological and philosophical journey the author describes.
Because it's really about understanding the mechanics of a radical worldview shift, isn't it?
That's exactly it. We are asking how adopting this specific set of beliefs fundamentally alters human behavior, decision-making, and just the very concept of identity.
Because, honestly, whether you are a devout believer of any faith or, a strict materialist or somewhere completely in between,
Yeah.
there's immense value in understanding the architecture of Ahmed's argument. Because it really holds a harsh mirror up to our own unexamined assumptions about who we think we
It
are.
really does.
And the central paradox of Ahmed's piece, the real hook that we're going to spend this time unpacking, is his claim that the only way to truly find yourself, to cure this intellectual and psychological loss,
Right.
is to realize you do not actually own yourself at all.
It's basically the ultimate anti-self-help advice.
It really is. So let's get into it. Ahmed immediately challenges the very premise of the question asked on Quora.
He doesn't even accept the terms of the debate.
Not at all. He starts his response by stating that very few people ever actually know themselves, or have ever known themselves.
Which is quite a claim to start with.
Yeah, and he says that people who do not know themselves do not necessarily feel intellectual or psychological loss.
Wait, say that again?
He argues that most people are simply following their desires. They're chasing money, fame, physical pleasures.
Right, the usual stuff.
Yeah, and they're completely drowning in these pursuits. And they falsely believe that chasing these things is a form of self-expression.
Ah, I see. So they don't even realize there's a problem.
Exactly. They think they're living their truth, but he says they're just chasing desires.
Okay, let's unpack this because my modern, secularly trained brain immediately starts raising some massive red flags here.
Right, I figured you might say that.
I mean, wait a minute. Isn't figuring out what you want, like your passions, your career goals, the kind of life you want to build, isn't that the whole point of self-discovery?
That's what we're taught, yeah.
We are taught from kindergarten that our passions are our identity. If we
Hmm.
strip away my ambitions, my quirks, my desires, my drive to be successful or comfortable,
What's even left?
exactly, what is even left to discover? How does Ahmed justify completely separating, who I am from what I want?
Well, it comes down to what you base your identity on. When we map identity directly onto desire, we build a foundation on shifting sand.
Shifting sand. Okay, explain that.
In the dominant modern framework, desire is the compass.
Yeah, your passions are the breadcrumbs leading you to your authentic self.
But to understand Ahmed's justification, we have to realize that he sees desire not as a compass, but as a blindfold,
A blindfold.
a
Yeah.
blinding, chaotic force. Think about it. Desires are incredibly transient.
That's true.
Think about how often they change based on your biology, your hormones, your environment.
Yeah. Or just the marketing algorithms you are exposed to on your phone.
Exactly. Societal pressures, all of it. If your identity is tied to your desires, your identity is inherently unstable.
Because your desires are always changing.
Right. Today, you desperately want to climb the corporate ladder, but tomorrow you burn out and want to move to a farm.
I know a few people who've done exactly that.
See? And if you literally are what you desire, then you are constantly dying and being reborn in this state of chaotic flux.
Okay, I'm starting to see his point.
Ahmed is arguing that the true self must be something foundational, something immutable, completely separate from these shifting winds of appetite.
So conflating the two, conflating the self and the desire is exactly what causes the psychological loss the Quora user is asking about.
Yes, it's like thinking you are the weather rather than realizing you are the sky.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
The storms of desire pass through, the sunny days of ambition pass through. But if you identify as the storm,
You are going to feel incredibly unstable.
right, you are going to feel lost every time the atmospheric pressure drops.
So Ahmed is saying that until you realize you are the sky and not the weather, you will never find yourself.
You'll just be perpetually trying to chase the right kind of storm.
Right. So when does the feeling of loss actually happen in his framework then, if it's not a loss of self?
He argues that this loss only occurs when a person's desires become confused.
Confused how?
It happens when things get tangled up and they no longer know what they want. They hit a wall where the money doesn't satisfy anymore.
Or the fame feels hollow.
Exactly. Or they suddenly have conflicting desires that paralyze them. So when people go on the internet and ask, how do I find myself? Ahmed says they're not actually looking for their true self.
What are they looking for?
They are really just asking, how do I organize my desires so I can feel good again?
Wow.
Yeah. He diagnoses the modern condition of intellectual and psychological loss, not as a profound crisis of identity, but basically as a glitch in the pursuit of pleasure.
That is a staggering diagnosis for you, the listener, to consider. I mean, think about the last time you felt totally lost in your career or your personal life.
Were you actually mourning the loss of your core identity?
Right. Or were you just experiencing the withdrawal symptoms of a broken pleasure-seeking mechanism?
That's a brutal question to ask yourself.
It really is. You think you lost yourself, but you actually just lost the thread of your own hedonism.
Yeah, your preferred method of feeling good stopped working, and you just labeled that breakdown as an existential crisis.
It really reframes the entire modern mental health crisis, at least as it pertains to purpose and meaning.
How so?
While society applauds you for chasing desires, you can go your whole life chasing money and fame without ever feeling a sense of psychological loss, because the external validation keeps the pleasure mechanism running smoothly.
So you think you're living your truth?
Right. The crisis only hits when the external validation stops or when the desires cannibalize each other.
So if desires are just this massive distraction, this blindfold that keeps us from seeing our true selves.
The natural question is how anyone ever takes the blindfold off.
Exactly. How did Ahmed figure this out? Because he doesn't present this as abstract theory. He presents it as a hard-won personal realization.
A real origin story.
Yeah. He takes us back roughly 17 years ago. He was just living his life, caught up in his own desires, living exactly the way we just described.
Yeah. Chasing the storms.
Yep. And then he received what he calls an admonition.
An admonition, like a warning.
Like a piece of advice or a moment of preaching from a very simple, sincere person.
Yeah.
Ahmed specifically notes the striking sincerity of this person.
Sincerity can be very disarming.
It really can. And this brief, sincere interaction forced Ahmed to stop and ask himself two absolutely massive, earth-shattering questions.
What were they? Because notice the progression here. These questions, they strip away everything else. They don't ask about his feelings or his career trajectory or his psychological state. They ask about fundamental objective reality as proposed by Islam.
Right. So question number one was, do you believe that a man living in the desert was sent by the creator of the universe with a message for all humanity?
Oh, okay.
And question number two, do you actually believe this universe has a creator in the first place and that the Qur'an is his literal word?
Those are heavy questions to just suddenly have to confront.
Very. And Ahmed talks about the intense internal struggle that followed. He admits that he had a general knowledge of the Quran before this.
Oh, so it wasn't a totally new concept.
No, this wasn't a case of someone hearing a completely new concept for the very first time.
Right.
But he notes that truly acknowledging the truth of it, like actually looking in the mirror and saying, yes, I believe this is the literal word of a creator.
That changes things.
It meant he had to risk his comfortable life. He had been living a life of pleasure, living as if there was no divine watcher.
Or, as he carefully clarifies, he was at least willfully ignoring that watcher.
Yes, willful ignorance.
What's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism he's exposing. Willful ignorance is a universally recognizable human behavior. We all do it in various areas of our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Ahmed knew, on some intellectual level, about the claims of the Qur'an. He had the general data, but he actively, consciously avoided looking too closely.
Why do you think that is?
Because truly acknowledging the reality of that data would trigger a massive set of obligations that would instantly ruin his unchecked lifestyle.
It's exactly like knowing you have a maxed out credit card.
Oh, yeah, that's the perfect analogy.
I want the listener to really picture this feeling because it's so visceral. You know the debt is there, right?
You feel that underlying hum of anxiety every time you swipe the card again.
Exactly. But the bill comes in the mail, and what do? You just toss it in a drawer unopened.
You refuse to log into your banking app.
Right. Because the moment you actually look at the statement, the moment you acknowledge the exact number in black and white,
You have to stop spending.
you have to cancel your weekend plans, you have to stop eating out, you have to completely restructure your daily behavior.
Facing the truth costs you your fun.
It does.
Yeah.
You lose your comfortable, pleasure-filled life. So you just leave the envelope sealed.
The unopened envelope is the unexamined worldview.
Yes.
As long as the envelope stays sealed, you can maintain the illusion that everything is fine. You can keep chasing your desires without immediate cognitive dissonance.
And Ahmed is admitting that for years, he kept the envelope sealed.
Right. The concept of a divine watcher was something he kept in his peripheral vision, intentionally out of focus, so he could continue enjoying his life without guilt or the burden of radical behavioral change.
Because when your beliefs and your actions are out of alignment, it creates psychological pain.
And for years, Ahmed managed that pain by suppressing the belief side of the equation.
But the interaction with this simple, sincere man 17 years ago forced him to finally tear open the envelope.
The sincerity of the messenger somehow cut through his carefully constructed defenses.
He decided for the first time to actually look at the statement. He says he decided to face the truth, even if it cost him his life of pleasure. He allowed the belief to become conscious and crystallized.
And once you do that, once you say, yes, there is a creator, yes, this is his word, the cognitive dissonance becomes unbearable.
You can't unsee the bill.
Exactly. You can no longer maintain the lifestyle. The friction between what you now consciously accept as objective reality and how you are spending your Tuesday night becomes too hot to ignore.
Which sets off a terrifying chain reaction in his mind. Once Ahmed finally looked at the statement and accepted the premise of a creator and the message of the Prophet Muhammad.
It wasn't just a warm, fuzzy feeling of spiritual awakening.
No, not at all. It wasn't a moment of peaceful zen. It triggered a brutal, terrifying, logical cascade.
We see the intense rationality of his process here. He doesn't describe a mystical vision or an overwhelming feeling of love.
Right.
He describes an airtight logical syllogism. It is an if-then statement playing out in his head with inescapable momentum.
He details the step-by-step conclusion he arrived at. It goes exactly like this. If the message of the Quran is true, then the day of judgment is real.
Okay.
If the day of judgment is real, then heaven is real. If heaven is real, then hell is real.
It is a straight line of deductive logic.
Completely.
If A is true, then B, C, and D are inherently true, and B, C, and D carry infinite eternal consequences.
And this logical chain led Ahmed to ask himself the ultimate, most terrifying question a human being can ask in this framework.
Which is,
If I die this very hour, what is my fate?
wow. And he doesn't flinch from the answer, does he?
He doesn't. He looks at his life, the life of chasing desires, the life of willful ignorance, the sealed envelopes, and he compares it to the criteria laid out in the Quran for who goes to heaven.
And the math does not look good for him.
No, it does not.
Having
Based on the source material he has now accepted as absolute, undeniable truth, his life does not match up with the criteria.
So his unavoidable, brutal conclusion is that he was going to hell.
Yeah. If we look at the underlying psychology, we are witnessing the activation of the most primal system we possess.
The survival mechanism.
Yes. This is no longer an abstract philosophical debate about the nature of the self.
Or a theoretical discussion about ancient texts.
No, this is a man who suddenly perceives a lethal, eternal threat bearing down on him.
I really want you, the listener, to pause and imagine the sheer, crushing weight of that sudden paradigm shift.
It's hard to even fathom.
Imagine sitting in your living room. You were perfectly comfortable. Maybe you just had a great dinner. You were planning a vacation.
Right.
And suddenly, through a chain of inescapable cold logic, you become absolutely convinced that you are currently on a fast track to eternal punishment.
How do you even function the next 60 seconds?
Exactly. What is your very next move? You go from just living your life, dealing with normal stresses like paying rent or answering emails,
to suddenly believing the building you are sitting in is on fire and the doors are locked.
the stark binary nature of this realization leaves no room for anything else. There is no gray area in Ahmed's logic here. It is heaven or hell. It is survival or destruction.
And when the survival mechanism kicks in at that magnitude, all other concerns just evaporate instantly.
Your career ambitions, your social status, your hobbies, your carefully curated identity, they instantly become irrelevant.
You realize you have to exploit whatever time you have left, whether it's 50 years or 5 minutes, to save yourself before it's too late.
It is the ultimate perspective shift. The intellectual and psychological loss the core user originally asked about is entirely eclipsed by the urgent need for spiritual survival.
Things you were stressing about yesterday, like a bad meeting at work or feeling unfulfilled in your creative hobbies, suddenly seem like absolute laughable trivialities.
You don't care if you feel fulfilled if you believe you're standing on the tracks and a train is coming.
Right. So Ahmed's next move is purely pragmatic. He needs an escape route. He needs to know how to get off the tracks.
So he consults the source material.
Yes, he goes to the Qur'an to find out how to save himself. But he doesn't just find a simple checklist of rules to follow to avoid hell.
It's not just a behavioral modification plan.
No, he finds a completely new identity. Seeking to save himself, Ahmed returned to the Quran and discovered who he actually was.
And what was the revelation?
It's incredibly stark. He realizes he is a created being. He is a servant. The Arabic word he uses is abd, which translates to servant or slave to Allah.
Okay.
He realizes that Allah created him, created his provisions, created the earth he walks on, and the sky above him. Therefore, he is entirely owned.
He is not a free agent.
Exactly. This concept of being an abd, an owned servant, is the absolute bedrock of the worldview he is describing.
Which is the complete 180-degree antithesis of the modern secular conception of the self.
It is. He reflects on his past life with deep regret, specifically focusing on this illusion of freedom. He says he had lived as if he were free, as if he had created himself.
And he gives a very specific, fascinating example from his past to illustrate how deep this illusion ran, doesn't it?
He does. He specifically notes that he spent years of his life studying physics and chemistry simply because he liked it.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he was making all his own choices, driven by his own interests, which he now realizes was a completely false premise.
But hold on, this is a massive sticking point. Let's really push back on this for a second. Even if we accept his premise that he is a created servant, couldn't studying chemistry be seen as a way of marveling at the creator's work, like unlocking the secrets of the universe?
You would think so.
We universally celebrate scientific curiosity. We push kids into STEM fields because understanding physics and chemistry is seen as an intrinsic, noble good.
Right, it's productive.
Why does he view the act of studying the natural world as an act of rebellion or a symptom of a flawed mindset, just because he enjoyed it?
It's a great question. To understand why he views this with regret, we have to isolate the exact nature of his critique.
Okay, lay it out.
For Ahmed, the subject matter physics and chemistry was not the problem at all. Islam has a long, rich, celebrated history of scientific inquiry.
Right, historically huge contributions to science.
Huge. The problem was the sovereignty of the decision. Who was in charge of making the
This is
choice?
the sovereignty, meaning the authority behind the action.
Yes. Why did he study physics and chemistry? He explicitly says in the text, because I loved it. He was operating under the assumption that he was the supreme author of his own life.
Yeah.
The logic in his head was, I desire this knowledge, therefore I will pursue it. I decide my path.
Oh, I see.
By choosing to study it simply because he wanted to, Ahmed was acting like a free agent. He was acting like an independent contractor rather than an owned servant awaiting instructions from his master.
It is a total rejection of the modern ideal of being the captain of your own soul.
Completely.
Think about William Ernest Henley's poem Invictus.
Oh, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Exactly. That is practically the anthem of modern individualism. It is
Yeah.
printed on graduation cards.
It is everywhere.
We are taught that the highest possible good is autonomy, self-actualization, finding your passion and following it relentlessly.
Right, you are the captain of the ship, and a successful life is one where you steer the ship wherever you and only you want it to go.
But in Ahmed's paradigm, acting like the captain of the ship when you are actually a deckhand who doesn't even own the boat,
It's not just delusional, it is a profound transgression.
it is insubordination. Even if you are steering the ship towards something objectively good or noble, like studying physics, if you are doing it simply because you want to, without reference to the actual owner of the ship, you are living a lie.
The foundational premise of your action is entirely false.
The intent behind the action matters more than the action itself. If the why originates solely from your own desire, even if it is a desire for knowledge, it is fundamentally flawed because it ignores the creator's absolute ownership.
It's basically an act of intellectual arrogance dressed up as curiosity.
Wow. We measure a successful life by output, by achievement, by how many of our desires we manage to fulfill.
But Ahmed is arguing for a measurement based solely on alignment with the creator's will.
The sovereignty of the self is the ultimate idol that must be smashed before true self-knowledge can begin.
That's a powerful way to put it. And to really hammer home how unnatural and frankly wrong it is to act like a free agent when you are entirely created and owned, Ahmed offers this incredibly grounded, specific analogy.
Yeah, he takes these lofty theological concepts of sovereignty and cosmic ownership and brings them right down to the street level.
He applies the universally understood concept of property rights directly to human existence.
Okay, let's hear the analogy.
So Ahmed asks the reader to imagine a scenario. Imagine walking out of your house and going over to your neighbor's driveway.
Right, I'm picturing it.
Your neighbor is standing there with their car. You walk right up to them and you dictate to them. This car must take this specific road today, and furthermore, it must be painted this specific color.
What would the neighbor's reaction be to that level of entitlement?
I mean, Ahmed points out the obvious. The neighbor would think you were completely insane. Why? Because it is not your car. You have absolutely no right, no legal standing, no moral authority to determine its path or its appearance.
You don't hold the title.
You didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
You didn't build it.
The logical progression here is flawless based on the premise of property rights. Ahmed argues that by the exact same logic, humans are transgressors. We are massively overstepping our bounds when we try to decide our own life paths based solely on what we want.
Because we do not own ourselves. We are completely owned by the Creator.
Right.
Therefore, just like only the neighbor has the right to decide what happens to his car, only the Creator has the logical right to determine our path.
Taking the wheel of your own life makes you a car thief.
Yes. That is an unbelievable reframing. Think about every piece of motivational advice you have ever consumed.
Take the wheel, be the driver of your own life, write your own story.
Exactly. Ahmed's text looks at all of that and says, that is grand theft auto on a cosmic scale.
The pursuit of absolute personal autonomy isn't just a psychological mistake in this worldview. It is effectively a form of theft or trespass.
You are hijacking a vehicle. Your life, your body, your intellect, your time, that legally and morally belong to someone else.
You are driving a stolen vehicle.
Let's apply that directly to the exhaustion so many people feel today.
Okay, let's do that.
Think about the cognitive load of modern life. We feel this immense pressure to define our own purpose, to invent our own morality from scratch, to constantly curate our identities.
To chart our own course based on nothing but our fluctuating desires.
Exactly. And the result, we are exhausted. We are burned out. We are experiencing the exact intellectual and psychological loss the Quora user asked about in the first place.
According to this analogy, we feel lost and exhausted because we are sitting in the driver's seat of a stolen car, trying to navigate without a map,
Terrified of getting pulled over by reality.
and fundamentally aware on some deep subconscious level that we do not belong in that seat.
The anxiety, the burnout, these are all just symptoms of being wildly out of alignment with the reality of our ownership.
You are carrying a cognitive load you were never designed to carry.
Think about it like a piece of software. If a piece of software designed to just process text is suddenly forced to render complex 3D graphics models,
It's gonna crash.
it is going to experience a loss of function. Ahmed is saying humans are designed to be servants, to receive instructions and execute them.
When we try to be the sovereign architects of our own destiny, we crash.
The burden of self-creation is simply too heavy for a created being to bear.
And Ahmed's worldview removes that burden entirely. It offers a radical simplification of the human experience.
It really does.
The anxiety of infinite choice is replaced by the clarity of obedience.
Which brings us to the culmination of his argument.
Right.
If we aren't meant to drive the car, if our desires are actually blindfolds, and if we are essentially owned property, how do we actually learn about who we are?
How do we finally answer the Quora user's question about rediscovering the self?
Ahmed explains that the realization of being an own servant fundamentally changes a person's entire life trajectory.
They shift from worshiping their own desires, which, as we've established, is the default modern state, to worshiping the creator.
They move from internal navigation to external compliance. And they do this by obeying commands and avoiding prohibitions.
Here is the ultimate answer to the Quora prompt. Ahmed states that true self-discovery does not happen through introspection.
Wait, really? Not at all.
Not at all. It doesn't happen by looking inward, peeling back the layers of your psyche, or taking a personality test to find your passions.
So how does it happen?
True self-discovery only begins after this absolute submission to the creator. You learn about yourself by listening to what the creator says about you.
He points specifically to the Qur'an and the Sunnah, the teachings of the Prophet, right?
Yes. He quotes a specific, powerful piece of logic from the Qur'an to back this up. It asks, "Does he who created not know, while he is the subtle, the acquainted?"
It's the manufacturer's manual concept.
Exactly.
If you want to know how a highly complex piece of machinery works, you don't ask the machine.
Right, the machine doesn't know its own specs.
You read the manual written by the engineer who designed and built it.
The text is arguing that the creator's manual is the only objective place to learn how the human machine actually works, what its purpose is, and how it finds peace.
So introspection without divine guidance, according to Ahmed, is worse than useless?
It is just getting lost in the funhouse mirrors of your own confused desires.
You look inward, you see a desire for money, and you think, I am an ambitious person.
You look inward the next day, see a desire for rest, and think, I am a peaceful person.
You will just chase one distorted reflection after another until you die, never actually encountering the foundational truth of your existence.
This completely redefines self-knowledge. In the secular view, self-knowledge is highly subjective. It is unique to you.
It is a bespoke suit you tailor for yourself.
But in Ahmed's view, self-knowledge is objective. It is given to you from the outside.
You learn about your limitations, your purpose, your duties, and your true nature, not by exploring your feelings, but by studying the revelation.
You find yourself by completely surrendering it.
That is just. It's a massive shift. Ahmed closes his Quora post with a final piece of advice for the reader who is feeling lost.
He brings it all back to those two core questions that changed his life 17 years ago.
He says, if you want to know yourself, you must ask, do you believe in the Creator? And do you believe he sent Muhammad specifically to you?
He urges the reader to answer honestly, regardless of the cost to their comfortable life, to save themselves before time runs out.
The urgency of the survival mechanism is right there at the end.
The cure for psychological loss isn't a new wellness routine. It is a confrontation with ultimate reality.
It is an epistemological crisis that must be resolved.
Until you answer the question of who owns you, you will remain lost in the forest, staring at a compass that doesn't point north.
Wow. Let's just recap the incredible conceptual journey we have been on with this text.
It's been quite a ride.
We started with a very common, relatable question about psychological and intellectual loss, that heavy feeling of drifting, of not knowing who you are.
And we watched Ahmed completely dismantle the premise of the question, arguing that we aren't lost, we are just confused by our own endless conflicting appetites.
We journeyed through his personal terror of judgment, where the cold, logical reality of hell forced a complete survival mode paradigm shift.
We saw him abandon the cherished modern concept of free will and autonomy, looking back even at noble pursuits like studying chemistry as a symptom of a rebellious, self-centered mindset because he did it solely for himself.
And we ended up in a place where finding one's true self is only achieved by totally unconditionally surrendering it to the creator who owns it.
It is a massive, towering conceptual leap from the illusion of the autonomous self to the profound, life-altering belief in being an own servant.
It highlights how deeply our baseline assumptions shape our reality.
Completely. If you assume you own yourself, your entire life is structured around maximizing your own choices and desires.
But if you assume you are owned by a creator, your entire life, down to whether you study physics, how you treat your neighbor, or what you eat, is reorganized around obedience and alignment with that creator.
It is a completely different operating system for human consciousness.
And as we promised at the beginning, we aren't here to tell you which operating system is the right one.
No, we are just here to show you how completely they differ and how radically they change a human life.
Which brings me to a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
A little something extra.
Even if you operate from a completely different, entirely secular worldview, even if you don't believe in a creator or a day of judgment, I want you to think about Ahmed's analogy of the neighbor's car.
The idea that someone or something else might be driving?
Exactly. Let me ask you this. Who or what is actually driving your neighbor's car?
Meaning, who is driving your life?
Right. When you feel that deep, supposedly authentic urge to pursue a specific career or a burning desire for a certain aesthetic or an overwhelming need to buy a specific brand,
Are those desires truly your own original creations?
did you write the code for those desires in a vacuum? Or are you too being steered by forces, whether biological drives, evolutionary imperatives, deeply ingrained societal conditioning, or just the relentless algorithm on your phone that you absolutely didn't choose?
That is a chilling thought. Even if you reject the theology we discussed today, are you truly as free as you think you are?
Or are you just serving a master you haven't recognized yet?
The diagnostic waters of the self are muddy indeed.
They really are. Maybe the wallet you were looking for was never really yours.
Thank you for joining us on this complex, challenging intellectual journey today.
We encourage you to keep exploring the source material of your own lives, keep questioning your assumptions, and we will see you next time on The Deep Dive.